Have you ever felt that if you don't do things, no one else will? That if you're not paying attention, everything falls apart? That if you don't take charge, no one will do it right? That if you're not strong, everyone else crumbles? And just like that, without realizing it, you began living while carrying more weight than any human being should ever have to bear. Because it's not just your job, your family, or your responsibilities. It's the anguish of feeling like everything depends on you. It's the mental exhaustion of constantly solving everything. It's the anxiety of having to anticipate everyone else's mistakes. It's the frustration of realizing that no matter how much you give, things will still go wrong. And yet, you blame yourself for it. That weight isn't physical, but it's crushing your back. It's invisible, but it drags you down. It makes no noise, but it silences your will to live. And there you are, functioning, delivering, helping, saving. But inside, every day it becomes harder to breathe freely. You go to bed with an exhausted mind, and you wake up already mentally running through everything you should do today. You are the one who solves, the one who gives, the one who calms, the one who holds things together, the one who endures, the one who swallows it all, and sometimes the one who quietly breaks inside, because no one notices the level of effort you demand from yourself. No one understands that it's no longer a choice, but a duty you imposed on yourself. That your identity became the one who can handle everything, even though inside you're screaming for someone to say, "You don't have to do it all." But that almost never comes. So you keep going, because what other choice do you have? And then comes the anger of feeling like you give more than you receive, the anger of not being able to rest, the anger of others never stepping up, the anger of not allowing yourself to stop, because you feel that if you do, everything will collapse. And there you are again, with your back loaded with responsibilities that aren't even all yours, with your mind scattered across 1,000 tasks, with your heart hardened by all the accumulated pressure, and you wonder, is this living? Is this what a good life is supposed to be? Where did my peace go? Where did I go? The most brutal part is that the world often applauds you for carrying so much. They call you strong. They say you're admirable. They keep telling you that you're the pillar, the foundation, the one who never fails. But they don't see you. They don't see your sleepless nights. They don't see your held-back tears. They don't see your need to give up, just for a while. They don't see that being strong doesn't mean you're not suffering. Stoicism didn't come to romanticize the burden. It didn't come to tell you endure more. It came to teach you that wisdom is not in carrying everything, but in discerning what truly belongs to you and letting go of the rest. Marcus Aurelius said it bluntly. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. If your soul is exhausted, if your body is crying out with symptoms, if your mind can no longer rest, it's time to listen, to stop running from the silence, to question the expectations you've placed upon yourself, to realize that carrying everything doesn't make you more valuable, it just makes you more likely to break. Because behind that excess responsibility, there's often an old wound, the need to feel needed, to believe that the more you do, the more you're worth, to think that if you're not fixing things, you won't be loved, to feel that if you're not in control, you don't deserve anything. But that's not love, that's not virtue, that's not freedom. This Stoic session is for you, you who are on the verge of emotional collapse and still keep smiling so no one worries. It's for you who've forgotten what it feels like to rest with a light soul. It's for you who feel guilty for even thinking of yourself because you've spent years living for others. We're not here to tell you drop everything and disappear into the woods. We're here to give you back the power to discern, to return to yourself, and to recover your center. Because you weren't born to carry the world. You were born to live in it, with inner peace. And if you want to begin letting go of that invisible weight that's consuming you, this session may be the start of a wiser, freer, more authentic life. Before we begin, I want you to declare your commitment by leaving this in the comments. Starting today, I stop carrying what doesn't belong to me. Let that phrase be your reminder that you're here to regain your balance, not to keep holding up what is breaking you. This is the moment to begin respecting yourself as you deserve. Without further delay, let's begin. Stoic, Lesson 1. You are not responsible for fixing the world. Pause for a moment and be honest with yourself. How many times in the past week have you felt obligated to solve something that wasn't even yours? A problem at work you didn't cause, but took on anyway. A family conflict you didn't create, but carried as if it were your own. Someone else's worry that you made your own, because if I don't do it, who will? And slowly, without realizing it, you stop living your life and start living in reaction to the voids, mistakes, and shortcomings of others. Not because they force you, but because you've grown used to thinking it's your duty. Because maybe from a young age you learned that love is earned by being useful. That admiration comes when you're the one who never fails. That personal worth is measured by how much you can carry without breaking. But here's the truth. All of that is a lie. It's not your responsibility to fix everything that's broken. It's not your mission to save the world. You're not here to be everyone's emotional glue. And yet you do it again and again. You wake up to a never-ending list of tasks you didn't ask for, didn't create, yet feel compelled to resolve. Because if you don't, it feels like everything will fall apart. Because you trust your ability to fix things more than you trust others to be mature. And deep down, you fear that if you stop taking care of everything, people will stop loving you. But that's not virtue. That's not wisdom. That's emotional slavery. Marcus Aurelius, one of the most powerful emperors of the ancient world, wrote something in his meditations that could change your life if you engraved it into your soul. Every man must bear his own burden. That includes your parents, your siblings, your partner, your friends, your colleagues, your children, your bosses. You are not here to live multiple lives at once. You are here to take responsibility for one and one only, your own. Stoicism didn't come to teach you to carry everything. It came to teach you how to discern. Epictetus explained it clearly. Some things are up to us, others are not. Serenity is born from understanding the difference. But you forgot that. You began to believe that if something affects you emotionally, then it must be your responsibility. That if someone suffers near you, it's your mission to step in. That if you see a mistake, you must fix it. That if someone needs you, you can't say no. And so you confused empathy with self-abandonment, solidarity with constant self-sacrifice, love with overload. But let me tell you this with stoic firmness, that's not noble, it's self-destructive. Because the longer you believe you have to fix everything, the further you drift from yourself. You get lost in everyone else's problems. You forget your own center. And the worst part, no one will stop you. Because those who always fix things are asked to do more. Those who never complain are left alone. Those who seem like they can handle everything are given no support. You think carrying more makes you valuable. But the Stoic knows that true wisdom lies in knowing which burdens are yours to carry and which you must let go. You're not betraying anyone by no longer trying to save them. You're not being selfish by prioritizing your peace. You're not failing by admitting you can't do it all. And do you know what's most liberating? When you stop trying to fix everything, you free yourself. But not just that, you give others the chance to grow. Because while you hold them up, they don't learn. While you rescue them, they don't face their own struggles. While you carry everything, they never take ownership. Letting go of responsibility is not abandonment. It's trust. It's maturity. It's the gift of autonomy for them and for you. The Stoic acts with virtue, but does not sacrifice unnecessarily. He knows his energy is finite. His time is sacred. His peace is non-negotiable. And you need to remember that. It is not your responsibility to heal everyone. It is not your responsibility to carry emotions that aren't yours. It is not your responsibility to uphold dysfunctional dynamics out of fear of disappointing people. Your only real responsibility is to cultivate your character, your serenity, your integrity. Everything else is secondary. The world doesn't need you to save it. It needs you to be yourself, in peace, steady, clear, and centered. Because from that place of calm you can help more effectively. From that center you can inspire. From that balance you can offer the best of yourself without losing yourself. So ask yourself this: what part of the world are you trying to fix that was never yours to carry? And when you find the answer, let it go, not out of indifference, but out of wisdom, because you too deserve rest. You too deserve to be supported. You too deserve to live without carrying it all. And starting today, you can begin to live differently. Stoic Lesson 2. Delegating is not weakness, it is wisdom. There's a dangerous idea many of us have carried since childhood without even noticing. The idea that asking for help means failure. That if you delegate, it's because you're not strong enough. That if you can't handle everything alone, then you're worth less. That relying on others makes you weak, dispensable, irrelevant. That's how perfectionists are made. The ones who carry everything, who never ask, never release, never rest. The ones who clench their teeth in silence while their soul crumbles inside. Maybe you are one of them. Someone who doesn't know how to ask for help without feeling guilty. Who would rather do everything alone than risk being seen as incapable. Who doesn't trust that others can do things well and so convinces themselves it's better if I just do it myself. But the cost of that is enormous, because you end up trapped in an invisible prison you built yourself. The prison of relentless self-demand, of needing no one, of placing more weight on your shoulders than any human being can carry without breaking. And the most painful part is that no one sees that internal struggle, because from the outside you look strong, you seem efficient, you appear to be the pillar holding everything together, but inside you're exhausted. You're fading away. The Stoics understood this well. Epictetus stated clearly, no one is self-sufficient. We all need others. Wisdom lies in knowing how to collaborate with virtue. But you confused virtue with perpetual sacrifice. You confused maturity with isolation. You confused responsibility with absolute control. And now you pay the price of living alone in the middle of everyone, alone with your tasks, alone with your worries, alone with your impossible schedule. But here comes the lesson that could change your life. Delegating is not giving up. Delegating is trust. Delegating is building community. Delegating is honoring your limits. Because no one who respects their energy tries to do everything alone. No one who understands the value of time wastes their days doing what could be shared. No one who truly loves themselves forces themselves to carry burdens they neither can nor should bear alone. Delegating doesn't make you less. It makes you human. And it reminds you that life is built in networks. Seneca wrote, "No noble life is lived in isolation. We are part of a community, and we must act as such." When you try to do everything yourself, you deny that community. You deny others the opportunity to grow. You deny yourself the chance to receive, and you deny yourself the rest you also deserve. Ask yourself today, why is it so hard for me to ask for help? Who am I trying to prove myself to? Where did I get the idea that delegating is a mistake? Perhaps the answer lies in your story. Maybe you grew up surrounded by people who weren't trustworthy. Maybe they disappointed you again and again. Maybe you learned that if you wanted things done right, you had to do them yourself, and you survived that way. But now you're not just surviving anymore. Now you want to live. And living means learning to trust others again. Yes, some people will fail. Yes, some won't do it the way you would. But that doesn't mean you have to die from exhaustion in the name of excellence. Because no one will applaud you for burning out. No one will remember you with gratitude for never asking for help. No one will give you a medal for having lived alone, carrying the world on your back. The Stoic understands that true strength is not in doing it all, but in knowing when to act, when to yield, and when to trust. Sometimes letting go of a task is an act of humility. Sometimes allowing someone else to step in is a gesture of respect. And sometimes saying, "I can't do this alone," is the first step to reclaiming your peace. Look around you. Observe everything you do, everything you hold together, everything you've taken on out of fear that others won't be up to the task. Now ask yourself, brutally honestly, how much of this do I really need to keep doing? Not everything you know how to do is yours to do. Not everything you're capable of doing is yours to carry. Not everything that's pending needs to pass through your hands. Sometimes your greatness will be in forming teams, in building trust, in teaching others, in creating space. And if you do it with virtue, then you're not letting go because you're tired, but because you're wise. You're not stepping back out of laziness, but out of respect for yourself. Because in the end, no one needs you to be perfect. They just need you alive, present, calm, and that's only possible when you learn to delegate without guilt. So next time you feel like everything depends on you, take a deep breath. And remember this: strength doesn't always look like someone doing it all alone. Sometimes it looks like someone with the courage to say, "This is not mine to carry," and that's okay. Feeling like everything depends on you isn't strength, it's exhaustion disguised as duty. If you've ever been tired of holding up the unholdable, subscribing might seem like a small gesture, but to us it means everything. It allows us to continue creating this space for those ready to release guilt that was never theirs. Here, you'll learn to free yourself without feeling selfish. Your peace is not a luxury, it's a responsibility to yourself. Stoic lesson. 3. Your worth is not in being indispensable. There's a silent trap that the most responsible people often fall into, a trap disguised as virtue, but one that slowly consumes, exhausts, and tightens around the soul. It's the trap of wanting to be indispensable, of believing that the more important you are to others, the more you are worth. That if everyone needs you, then you're valuable, and if they don't, you become invisible. Maybe you feel that way. Maybe without realizing it, you began living for others, solving everything for everyone, anticipating every problem, always offering yourself, even when tired, even when drained, because something inside you whispers, "If I don't do it, no one will. If I'm not there, everything will fall apart. If I'm not always available, then what am I?" And though that thought sounds noble, it's deeply dangerous, because it turns you into a prisoner of your own effort. Worse yet, into a slave of your need to feel needed. Seneca warned with clear wisdom, "He who believes the world will stop without him lives in delusion." Yes, he said it harshly, because he knew that a soul clinging to that illusion ends up shattered, because no matter how much you do, how much you hold together, how much you give, there will always be more to do. And if your value depends on being irreplaceable, you will never be able to stop. You'll never be able to rest. Never be able to say, "I can't." Never be able to turn inward, because everything revolves around being there for others. But here's a Stoic truth that may hurt, and also set you free. No one is indispensable. And that is not a tragedy. It's a blessing. Because if the world doesn't depend on you, then you can breathe. If you don't have to hold everything together, then you can live with more lightness. And if you no longer need to prove your worth, then you can finally begin to feel it from within. Marcus Aurelius put it clearly, "Perform your duty with virtue, not from a desire for recognition." In other words, do what is right, do what is noble, do what your soul knows to be just, but don't do it to feel worthy. Do it because you already are. That's the shift. That's the key. When your worth no longer depends on how much you do, how much you're needed, or how many seek you out, then you live in freedom. Then you can act with true virtue. Because when you act for others while secretly craving validation, you always end up frustrated. You always feel unseen, unappreciated, not enough. But when you act from balance, from genuine love, from self-awareness, you no longer care if they thank you or not, because your soul is at peace, because you know who you are, even if no one else notices. That's what Epictetus called autarkia, the capacity to be enough for yourself without needing to be everyone's hero. It's not selfishness, it's clarity. It's knowing that your worth isn't measured by how much you sacrifice, but by how aligned you are with your values. It's the moment you stop acting from lack and begin living from fullness. Do you see the shift? Maybe no one has told you this before, so I'll say it now, firmly. You don't need to be the strongest or the most useful or the most selfless to deserve rest, love, and respect. Your humanity is enough. Your presence is enough. Your very existence is enough. And yes, sometimes you'll stop being the one who fixes everything. Sometimes you'll say, I can't, or I don't want to. And some people will be upset. Some will make you feel guilty. Some will try to manipulate you with lines like, you always do it so well. If you're not here, nothing works. You're the only one I trust. But you'll know the truth. That's not love. That's not respect. That's poorly managed dependency, and you're no longer going to feed that with your exhaustion, because you've learned that your value isn't proven by carrying more than you should, but by honoring your limits with dignity. Being indispensable is a dangerous fantasy. Being whole is a liberating reality. So today, if you're tired of being the one who's always there for everyone, but feel like no one is ever there for you, take a step back, reflect, and remember these words. My worth is not in being the one who holds everything. My worth is in being true to myself, even if that means not being there for everyone all the time. And if you can hold that truth, then you've taken one of the most important steps toward your inner freedom. Stoic Lesson 4. Demanding too much is not virtue, it is punishment. The culture of everything depends on me has broken more souls than it has created virtuous leaders. We've been taught that carrying more, giving more, performing more, and never stopping is a sign of commitment, of excellence, of virtue. But it's not. Not when that demand comes hand in hand with chronic exhaustion, latent anxiety, and a constant sense of not being enough. Marcus Aurelius, emperor and philosopher, understood this trap well when he wrote, "The perfection of character is to live each day as if it were your last, with calm, without indifference, and without pretense." And what is over-demanding if not a constant pretense of being more than we are in this moment? A persistent denial of human limitation. Since childhood, we've been taught that giving your best is always good, that striving without pause is the right thing to do. But no one warned us that taken to the extreme, this logic becomes a self-imposed punishment. It is not a virtue to demand so much from yourself that your body becomes ill. It is not a virtue to have anxiety attacks just because you want everything to be perfect. It is not a virtue to lose sleep over a goal you're not even sure is yours. That is not virtue. It is mental slavery, a subtle form of self-abuse disguised as dedication. Stoicism does not glorify blind self-demand. It elevates the virtue of moderation, the wisdom to know when to take a step back, when to say, "This no longer serves me," when to let go of the idea that your worth is measured by how much you can endure. Seneca said it clearly. Most human suffering does not come from events themselves, but from the mind's refusal to let go. And how many of us, clinging to ideals of perfection, deny ourselves rest, compassion, and humanity? Think about it for a moment. Who are you trying to impress? What part of you believes that only if you do everything right, meet every demand, and leave no room for reproach, then you'll be worthy? That voice that relentlessly demands more from you doesn't come from virtue. It comes from fear. Fear of not being enough. Fear of disappointing others. Fear that if you lower your guard, the world will fall apart. Or you will. But there is another way. The Stoic does not push himself to the point of collapse. He aligns with his nature. He understands that doing what he can with integrity is enough. That excellence is not perfection, but coherence. That duty does not mean carrying everything, but acting wisely, choosing what truly matters and letting go of the rest. Demanding more from yourself than your soul can carry won't make you more worthy, only more exhausted, more disconnected from who you are. Sometimes the bravest act is to stop, to breathe, to acknowledge that self-demand has stopped being a driving force and has become a chain. To say enough is not surrender, it is awakening. It is breaking free from the beliefs that keep you trapped. It is realizing that you can live with calm without losing your sense of purpose, with compassion without becoming mediocre, with strength without sacrificing yourself. Stoicism does not teach you to give up effort. It teaches you to give up unnecessary suffering, to release the demand that drains rather than builds, to reject the false belief that only by giving everything all the time you are deserving. Deserving or not, you must live in balance, because life is not a constant test. It is a path, and that path must be sustainable, virtuous, habitable. Ask yourself now, how much of what I demand from myself truly matters? What would happen if I allowed myself to be human, not a hero? If I learned to pause, to prioritize, to choose peace over perfection? The wise know, whoever lives to fulfill others' expectations loses themselves, and no one who has lost themselves can carry anything for long. Never again confuse excess with merit, nor suffering with commitment. You can live with greatness without crushing yourself. You can be an example without destroying yourself inside. Stop believing that your worth grows with your suffering, and start living as if your well-being is part of your purpose. Because it is. Your virtue is not in how much you endure, but in how clearly you choose. Your freedom begins the moment you stop demanding from yourself as punishment and reclaim the art of being human. Stoic lesson. 5. Don't confuse control with responsibility. One of the deepest sources of stress for those who carry it all is the illusion of control. The obsessive need for everything to go perfectly, for no one to suffer, for no mistakes to happen, for every step to go exactly as planned. It sounds noble, even virtuous, but in reality it's a fantasy, a dangerous trap for the soul, because what begins as commitment eventually becomes emotional slavery, and what begins as responsibility slowly turns into guilt for everything that slips out of your hands. Epictetus taught this with brutal clarity. Some things are up to us, and some are not. It sounds obvious, but when you apply it to your own life, how much of your anxiety comes from trying to control what cannot be controlled? How much of your exhaustion comes from feeling guilty about other people's choices, about what didn't go as expected, about what you couldn't anticipate? When you forget this essential distinction, you end up carrying a weight that no human can bear without breaking. You cannot control other people's reactions, or the decisions they make, or life's sudden twists. You can't prevent every mistake, every accident, every detour. And yet you act as if you could, as if you must. You feel responsible for your family's emotional climate, your team's success, your partner's balance, everyone's health, your friends' moods, the direction of every project. And if something goes wrong, you take it personally, as if everything revolved around you. That's not responsibility. It's a delusion of control, and it's exhausting you. The Stoics knew that true freedom begins not when you control the world, but when you learn to govern yourself. It's not about becoming indifferent. It's not about stepping back from life. It's about acting with virtue, then letting go of the result, doing your part with integrity, and then accepting what comes with equanimity. Because what happens afterward is no longer your responsibility. Just imagine how your life would change if you deeply integrated this idea. You are not responsible for everything that happens, only for how you respond to it. You are not responsible for the final outcome, but for the effort and presence you bring to it. You don't have to save everyone, predict every problem, or always have a solution ready. Your mission is not to control, it is to live with righteousness, even in chaos. Marcus Aurelius said it plainly, "Do what is necessary, the rest is not your concern." This is the core of Stoic serenity. Do what's right without stressing over the outcome. Fulfill your role without assuming everyone else's. Be part of the world without believing you're the center of it, because you are everything, and at the same time, you are not the center of anything. Accepting this isn't giving up. It's growing up. It's not lack of commitment. It's wisdom. There is a huge difference between taking responsibility and taking blame. Responsibility pushes you to act with strength. Control forces you to act from fear. One empowers you, the other poisons you. One invites you to trust the process. The other devours you as you try to fix what you never could. Look at your life. How many times have you suffered because things didn't go the way you wanted? How many times did you punish yourself for not being able to prevent a conflict, a loss, someone else's disappointment? How many times did you act with effort and integrity and still blame yourself because things weren't perfect? That's not virtue. It's self-demand disguised as love, and it's not. Love is not control. Caring is not absorbing. Being responsible is not carrying it all. The Stoic knows his task, to train himself to be his best self in every situation, and then to let go of what he cannot control, not because he doesn't care, but because he understands that living well doesn't mean controlling everything. It means living with wisdom within the uncontrollable. Today you can begin freeing yourself from that invisible prison. Do what you can, with your whole heart, with honesty, with intention, and then let go. What happens is not yours to hold. Your job is not to guarantee results, but to plant noble seeds. Your peace does not depend on the outcome, but on your integrity. Your strength doesn't come from control, but from your ability to release without falling apart. Stop blaming yourself for what was never your responsibility, and start living from what truly is up to you. That's where your freedom lives. That's where your true serenity begins. Stoic lesson 6. Taking care of yourself is also your responsibility. Who takes care of you when you're the one taking care of everyone else? That's a question few dare to ask until it's too late. Because when you become the one who holds everything together, the refuge for everyone, the silent guardian of others' emotional balance, you also become invisible to yourself. And that's where true exhaustion begins, not in the act of giving, but in the constant denial of your own needs while giving. Many people believe that being responsible means sacrificing everything: their time, energy, sleep, health, emotional well-being, even their own identity. They wake up every day with an endless list of things to do for others, and go to bed with only one feeling: emptiness, exhaustion, depletion. And still, the next day, they repeat the cycle as if it were normal, as if they didn't have the right to stop, as if taking care of themselves were selfish. But it's not. Taking care of yourself is not a luxury. It's a necessity. And more than that, it's a responsibility. Yours. Seneca said it with unshakable clarity. We cannot take proper care of others until we learn to take care of ourselves. You cannot give from emptiness. You cannot offer peace when your inner world is a battlefield. You cannot support others if your own structure is fractured. Stoicism does not promote indifference. It promotes strength. And strength that does not include self-care is just a mask. It is not a virtue to live on the edge. It is not noble to deny yourself rest, nourishment, space, or comfort. It is not wise to serve everyone but yourself. That is not generosity. It is self-abandonment. And no abandonment builds anything lasting. When you postpone your well-being again and again, you're not being responsible. You're being negligent with yourself. And internal negligence always has consequences. It begins as fatigue, then becomes irritability. Soon after, apathy sets in, emotional numbness, constant anxiety, a feeling of emptiness, silent resentment toward those who don't see you, physical pain, and eventually illness. And when that happens, you can no longer hold anything together, because you've lost yourself in the process. Taking care of yourself is not about pampering with superficial things. It's about creating inner space where your soul can rest. It's telling yourself the truth when you've reached your limit. It's honoring your boundaries. sleeping enough, eating mindfully, breathing deeply, walking alone, reminding yourself that you deserve to be well, not because you earned it, but because you're human. And above all, it's remembering this: you don't have to collapse to be heard. You don't have to get sick to be left alone. You don't have to hit rock bottom to deserve care. The Stoic protects their soul because they know it is their only true tool for facing the world with dignity. They don't surrender themselves to burnout. They commit to balance. They cultivate their energy as one would tend to a garden, with patience, consistency, and intention. They don't wait to be saved. They become their own refuge. Ask yourself now, what part of you have you been neglecting for the sake of others? Your body, your rest, your creativity, your calm, your joy, your chosen solitude. How many times have you postponed your well-being out of fear that others would call you selfish? How many times have you felt guilty for needing a pause? How many times have you told yourself, "I'll take care of me later," waiting for everything else to be in order, without realizing that moment never comes? That way of living is not sustainable. Sooner or later, something inside you will break. But you don't have to wait for that. You can start now. Set time aside without having to justify it. Say no without guilt. Care for your health before it deteriorates. Prioritize your soul the way you prioritize everyone else's schedule. Taking care of yourself is also a way to care for the world, because your best self doesn't show up when you're sacrificed, but when you're in balance. When you live with inner strength, your mere presence becomes support. You don't have to do it all. It's enough to simply be whole, calm, aware. Remember this every time you feel guilty for resting. You didn't come into this world to save everything. You came to live with virtue, with courage, and with self-love. And that begins with you. Be the refuge you've long searched for. Cultivate your calm like a sacred duty, because no one else will do it for you, and because the world needs more whole people, not more burned-out martyrs. If you've made it this far, it means you're ready to stop carrying what was never yours to begin with. Subscribe and comment "I deserve to let go without guilt" to affirm your commitment to a lighter, more authentic life. This is only the first step toward an existence where you don't have to exhaust yourself to feel worthy. When we reach the 9th lesson, you'll discover a truth that might finally free you from the weight you've carried for years. Don't miss it. It could be the relief your soul has been asking for. Let's keep going. Stoic Lesson 7. Carrying too much doesn't make you a better person. There's a silent trap that awaits those who strive to do what's right. A trap disguised as virtue, yet hiding exhaustion. It presents itself as nobility, but masks a deeper wound, the need to feel valuable, at the cost of oneself. Many people go through life believing that the more they endure, the more they are worth. That the more responsibilities they take on, the more love, respect, or recognition they deserve. That bearing the unbearable is a sign of strength, and that giving up parts of themselves in the name of others proves they're a good person. But it doesn't. Marcus Aurelius, one of the most powerful emperors of his time and one of the most lucid philosophers in history, wrote, "What does not benefit the hive does not benefit the bee." A phrase that reminds us burden is not synonymous with virtue, especially when that burden crushes your soul, when it breaks you, when it turns you into a shadow of who you could be. Carrying everything doesn't make you wise. It makes you a slave to a false idea of what it means to be useful. Many take pride in never asking for help, in doing everything alone, in being the ones who are always there for others. But that pride is often just a mask, a way to hide the fear of not being needed, the fear of not being loved if they're not fixing something, the fear of being worthless unless they're holding others up. And that way of living, sooner or later, becomes silent suffering. Stoicism does not reward those who suffer the most. It does not glorify martyrdom. It does not elevate burnout as a symbol of virtue. Seneca was crystal clear about this. It is no mark of virtue to allow the burden to destroy you. Quite the opposite. The wise Stoic is the one who knows their limits, who knows when to stop, who understands that balance is more powerful than blind self-sacrifice. Suffering under too much weight doesn't make you better. It only makes you more fragile, because on the outside you might look strong, but every time you ignore your boundaries, something breaks inside. Every time you say yes when you wanted to say no, you lose part of yourself. Every time you take on a responsibility that isn't yours, you drift further from your peace. And here's the hardest truth. The world doesn't always value your sacrifice. In fact, it often takes it for granted. You get used to being the one who always can, the one who never says no, the fixer. And without realizing it, you build a prison, one where you are no longer allowed to rest. And do you know what's most cruel? You built it yourself, and now you don't know how to escape it without feeling guilty. But there is a way out, and it begins with one fundamental Stoic truth. Your virtue is not in how much you carry, but in how you choose to live. You can help without destroying yourself. You can be useful without sacrificing your being. You can love without erasing yourself. You can show up for others without forgetting who you are. True virtue is balance, not suffering. It's acting with intention, not overexertion. It's giving your best without giving your all to the point of emptiness. Marcus Aurelius also said, "Do what is required. Do it with humility. Do it with love, and let it go." That means knowing when to stop, when to say, "This is as far as I go," when to admit you can't do it all. And that's okay. It doesn't make you less. It doesn't take away your dignity. On the contrary, it gives you deeper power, because only someone who knows themselves can choose with clarity. Ask yourself now, what are you carrying that was never yours? What part of that burden stems from the fear of not being loved unless you do everything? How many times have you forced yourself to keep going when your soul was begging for a break? When was the last time you even questioned whether any of this still made sense? You're not here to play the silent hero. You're here to live truthfully, to act from your center, to build a life that supports you, not one that consumes you. Stop thinking that the more exhausted you are, the more you're worth. Exhaustion is not a medal. It's a signal, an alarm, a call from your body, your mind, and your soul, asking you to come back to yourself. The world doesn't need more people who destroy themselves to keep it standing. It needs more people who live from their inner strength, from alignment, from peace. And that peace begins the moment you give yourself permission to let go. When you decide, with resolve, that you will no longer prove your worth by carrying what you don't need to. When you understand that your best self doesn't show up in exhaustion, but in equilibrium. Remember, carrying too much doesn't make you better. It only takes you further from the best of who you are. Free yourself, breathe, and start living from a place where you no longer need to earn your worth. Because now you know you already have it. Stoic Lesson 8. Humbly recognizing your limits. One of the greatest mistakes made by those who carry everything is believing that admitting their limits is a weakness, as if saying, "I can't take any more," were a failure, as if stopping meant they had failed. And yet that belief is nothing more than a reflection of a culture that glorifies overexertion, but scorns rest, that praises those who perform, but not those who protect themselves, that applauds those who do it all, but ignores those who know how to stop in time. Epictetus, master of Stoicism, taught that humility is the foundation of true wisdom. And being humble does not mean diminishing yourself. It means seeing yourself clearly, with your virtues, yes, but also with your limits. A wise person does not overextend to prove something. They don't try to meet every demand out of fear of disappointing others. They don't force themselves to carry what they can't just to preserve their pride. A wise person observes, reflects, and says, "This is as far as I go. I can do this. I cannot do that." And they do this not out of laziness or resignation, but from a deep understanding that every human being has a breaking point, and crossing that point as a way of life is not courage, it's neglect. Whoever refuses to recognize their limits is destined to break. Some people have spent years ignoring the signals from within. They sleep poorly, eat badly, live in tension, isolate themselves, feel a chronic fatigue. But keep going, because they believe that if they stop, something will collapse. And yes, sometimes something does collapse, the false belief that you can handle it all. But that's not a tragedy. It's a rebirth. No one can do it all. And no matter how much you try, how much you care, how much you sacrifice, some things will simply exceed your human capacity. And that's okay. You were not created to solve everything. You were created to live with virtue. And living with virtue also means knowing when to say, I can't anymore. When you ignore your limits, the body starts to speak. The mind wears down, the emotions overflow. And one day, you find yourself crying inside, not knowing why everything feels so heavy. The answer? Because you've spent too long pretending you have no limits. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Nature does not demand from you more than you can bear." That means if something feels like it's overwhelming you, it's not because you're failing. It's because you're demanding more of yourself than you should. Many confuse this with giving up. But it's not giving up, it's recalibrating. It's saying, this burden no longer allows me to live with integrity. This expectation is no longer fair. This self-demand is taking more than it gives. And making decisions based on that realization is not weakness. It's practical wisdom. Stoicism does not deny effort. It does not promote complacency, but it also does not encourage blind overexertion. What it seeks is applied virtue, the balance between action and reflection, between giving your best and knowing when to hold back. Epictetus also said, "First learn who you are, then adorn yourself accordingly." You cannot adorn yourself with demands that don't respect your nature. You cannot build a good life on a foundation of exhaustion. If today everything feels heavy, if each day feels harder, it may not be because life is too much. It might be because you are ignoring your limits. And when you do that, life stops being lived and starts being endured. Ask yourself, what part of my life is asking more of me than I can give without breaking? What things am I still saying yes to just so I don't seem weak? What decisions am I postponing out of fear of letting go? What part of me is asking for rest, but I still won't allow it? Your limits don't make you less. They make you human. And only when you honor them can you build something real. Something that doesn't fall apart inside while pretending to be solid outside. Don't be afraid to say, I'm done. Don't fear admitting you need help. Don't feel guilty for needing less burden and more breathing room. Life is not measured by how much you endure, but by how well you sustain yourself. When you recognize your limits with humility, you reclaim your power, because you begin to act from a place of truth. No disguises, no masks, no need to prove anything to anyone. And paradoxically, that's when you shine the most, because light doesn't come from forced effort, but from the authenticity of a soul at peace. Accepting your limits is the first step toward living in freedom, and that freedom is the gift that follows so many years of unnecessary burden. If this message is helping you let go of what was never yours to carry, follow us and join this space where we learn to live with less guilt and more calm. Here we remind you that your well-being matters, and that you weren't born to hold up the world by yourself. Stoic Lesson 9. Don't fear disappointing others for protecting your peace. One of the greatest fears that leads a person to carry more than they can is this, the fear of disappointing others. That if you're not always available, if you don't deliver, if you don't hold everything up on your own, you'll be failing. Failing your family, failing your partner, failing your children, your team, your parents, everyone. And that creates a silent guilt, a constant voice that whispers, I can't stop, I can't rest, I can't ask for help, because I would disappoint them. But have you ever stopped to think, who are you disappointing when you abandon yourself? Because that's you too, and that's also betrayal. and often the cruelest kind, the one no one sees, the one that never speaks up, the one that silently breaks you from within. Seneca expressed it with brutal clarity. He who lives to please everyone ends up betraying himself. Because when you become the pillar of everything, the tireless fixer, the eternal responsible one, you start to disappear. Your identity fades, your needs are postponed, your inner peace becomes a luxury you no longer allow yourself, all to avoid disappointing others. But what kind of love demands that you destroy yourself in order to be enough? Healthy love respects boundaries. True friendship honors silence. A real family should never demand sacrifices that destroy your well-being. If someone only values you when you're worn out for their sake, that's not love, that's dependency. It's emotional abuse disguised as closeness. And yes, when you begin to set boundaries, you will disappoint, because people got used to always having you there. To you saying yes without pause, to you carrying everything without protest. But that's not your fault. That's the consequence of having taught others over time that you had no limits, and now you're learning to have them. And yes, that makes people uncomfortable, but discomfort is not the same as failure. Marcus Aurelius said it this way: do what reason demands, not what seeks approval. Your life is not meant to be lived under other people's standards. Your mental health should not be traded for someone else's acceptance. Your rest should not be negotiated based on others' expectations. When you choose to protect yourself, some people will pull away, some will judge you, some will say you've changed, and you have. You've changed for the better, because finally you chose yourself, because finally you put your peace above your need for approval, and that takes courage. Because for years maybe you were the strong one, the one who can do anything, the one who never says no. And letting go of that role can be terrifying, because you don't know who you are without it. But what remains is your truth, your essence, your inner voice. And that's worth more than any applause from others. Ask yourself, how many times have you said yes while your soul was screaming, I can't anymore? How many times have you held others while falling apart yourself? How often has the fear of disappointing others stolen your rest, your joy, your life? No more. Disappointing others to protect your peace is not selfishness. It's emotional integrity. It's maturity. It's a deep and courageous form of self-love. No one will guard your peace if you don't guard it first. No one will defend your boundaries if you trample them yourself. No one will take care of you better than you once you decide to honor yourself. That means making hard decisions, saying no when everyone expects a yes, slowing down when the world pushes you to go faster, choosing yourself even when it means disappointing those you love. But remember this: if your love for others leads you to betray yourself, it's not love, it's emotional dependency, and that's what you must free yourself from. Seneca also said, you should not live according to the approval of others, but according to your rational nature. Your rational nature knows when you're at peace. And when you're breaking, it knows when something nourishes you. And when it drains your life, listen to it. Maybe today you need to tell someone you can't handle anymore, that you need space, that you can no longer carry it all alone. And yes, maybe they'll be upset. Maybe they'll feel disappointed. Maybe they'll walk away. But if their leaving creates space for you to return to yourself, then you've lost nothing. You've gained clarity. And that clarity is the beginning of a new life, more honest, more serene, more yours. You don't owe anyone a broken version of yourself just to keep them comfortable. The only thing you owe is loyalty to your truth. And if that disappoints, so be it. Inner peace has a price, and that price is releasing your addiction to pleasing everyone. Pay it. It's worth every part of yourself you'll reclaim in the process. Stoic Lesson 10. Inner peace is worth more than external approval. There's a silent trap that many people fall into when they try to carry everything: the need to be recognized, to be approved, to be seen as indispensable. And while that trap may seem motivating at first, it eventually becomes a prison. Because when your peace depends on others valuing you, it's no longer yours. When your day is defined by how many people thank you, praise you, or admire you, you've stopped living for yourself. And when fear of disappointing mixes with hunger for approval, you become a shadow of yourself, someone who does a lot, yet feels increasingly empty. Marcus Aurelius once said, "Stop debating what a good man should be one." And within that line lies a profound truth. Virtue doesn't need witnesses. Goodness doesn't need rewards. And your worth doesn't depend on being recognized by others, but on being honest with yourself. When you do the right thing, when you act from your conscience, when you set boundaries to protect your balance, you won't always get a pat on the back. Sometimes people won't understand you. Sometimes they'll criticize you, and yet you will know. You'll know you were on the edge, that your body was begging for rest, that your mind couldn't take more, that your soul was asking, begging you to stop, and that knowing is enough, because you don't need an audience to validate your right to live in peace. Stoicism reminds us again and again, the only life you can control is your own. And if you use it to please everyone but yourself, then what's the point? Some people confuse Stoicism with indifference. But being Stoic isn't about being cold, it's about being firm. It's about having a clear center from which to act. It's about knowing that your inner calm is your most valuable resource, and guarding it like the treasure it is. Seneca warned, "He who seeks applause becomes a slave to the crowd." And that slavery is subtle. It sneaks into your decisions, into your tone of voice, into the things you do out of fear that people will stop loving you if you show your human side. But what if you're constantly proving to yourself that people only love you when you have no needs? What if the cost of approval is your emotional health? Is it worth it? You're not here to hold up the world with trembling hands. You're not here to be the perfect pillar while falling apart inside. You're not here to be applauded for being strong while silently begging for help. You're here to live in alignment, to act from virtue, to build a life that doesn't depend on applause, but on your peace. And that peace has no price. You might lose recognition, you might disappoint expectations, you might break the image others had of you, but if in doing so you regain your balance, you've won. Because external approval will never fill the emptiness of living in contradiction, and when you finally choose inner peace over appearances, something shifts. You stop doing things just to be liked. You stop saying yes to avoid conflict. You stop carrying what isn't yours just so others can call you a good person. And you begin to choose, to discern, to breathe with more space, because you understand that living well isn't about doing everything. It's about doing what's just, what's necessary, what aligns with who you are. Marcus Aurelius also wrote, "The best revenge is to be unlike the one who wronged you." And you can apply this to yourself. The best way to break free from a system that demands constant strength is to stop resembling that system, to stop demanding perfection from yourself, to stop clinging to the role you built just to feel worthy, and start building a new identity, one where your worth isn't tied to carrying everything, but to acting with clarity, one where your rest is non-negotiable, one where being fully yourself, human, imperfect, real, is enough. When you reach that place, you no longer need constant thank yous. You're not as wounded by the "why didn't you do more?" You're not broken by disappointing those who can't see your effort, because you see it, and that's enough. Inner peace is worth more than any external approval, and you deserve a life that reflects that truth. People don't have to understand it. You just have to live it, with firmness, with humility, with truth. And finally, you'll stop carrying everything and start walking more lightly, more freely, more you. There is a kind of exhaustion that isn't visible at first glance. It leaves no bruises, it doesn't cause a fever, it brings no visible tears, but it feels like a stone pressing on the soul, like an existential fatigue that sleep can't fix, like a silent sadness hidden behind the smile of someone who handles everything. It's the exhaustion of living while carrying the world, of being the one who holds it all together, who solves, who puts out fires, who keeps everyone afloat while sinking inside. Have you ever felt that way? Have you become that person who always has to be okay, who can't fail, who isn't allowed to rest, who won't even permit themselves to collapse? Maybe no one told you this before, but you need to hear it. You are not here to save everyone. You are not here to hold together realities that are breaking you. You are not here to pay the price for others' balance with your own stability. And above all, you are not alone, because there are many like you. People who learned from a young age that love is earned by being useful. That validation comes when you become the solution. That respect is won by sacrificing without showing weakness. But that is not love. That is emotional conditioning, and you can unlearn it. You can stop chasing recognition. You can let go of the guilt of not being able to do it all. You can learn to say, "This is not mine to carry," without feeling any less for it. Because true strength isn't in carrying more. It's in knowing when to let go. Stoicism didn't come to harden you even more. It didn't come to tell you to endure forever. It came to show you the path to your inner freedom, to remind you that you don't need total control to live with dignity, that you're not obligated to meet suffocating expectations. That virtue is not found in overload, but in clarity, and in that clarity something beautiful happens. You start to respect yourself. You no longer act out of fear. You no longer pile on responsibilities just to feel worthy. You no longer live with the anxiety of needing to prove your value. You live from your center, from conscious choice, from peace. And yes, some people may not understand. You may lose certain connections. It may hurt to disappoint those who are using you as a crutch, but you'll gain something priceless. Your life. A life where you don't need to overburden yourself to feel enough. A life where you can stop without guilt. A life where you don't have to be a hero, a martyr, or a savior. Just you. You with your limits, with your timing, with your priorities, with your legitimate right to take care of yourself without justifying it. And that path, even if it feels lonely at first, is not. Here, in this space, there are many of us learning the same, letting go of roles that exhausted us, recovering our lost calm, rewriting how we treat ourselves, because it's not about doing less, it's about doing what's right, with meaning, with integrity, with deep respect for our own well-being. The soul needs oxygen too, and it won't find it if you live constantly holding your breath out of fear of not being enough. You are not what you do for others. You are what you choose to build with yourself. And if this session touched something in you, if you felt like someone finally put into words what you've silently carried for years, then this space is your home. Here, we don't reward perfection. We don't glorify meaningless sacrifice. We don't demand that you're always okay. We simply want to walk beside you toward a life of serenity, of awareness, of freedom, a life where you matter too, where your rest matters, where your soul can breathe without having to carry it all. So if this message gave you anything, a pause, a mirror, a sense of relief, I invite you to take the next step. Subscribe, comment, be part of this community that, like you, is learning to stop carrying the unbearable. Because you're not alone in this process, and because every person who chooses to drop unnecessary burdens is also showing the world that another way of living is possible. A way that's more human, more honest, more stoic. Subscribing may seem like a small gesture, but to us, it means everything. It's an act of rebellion against a culture of burnout. It's a commitment to yourself. Here, you'll learn to live in calm without needing to prove anything. To be strong without silently sacrificing yourself. To release what's not yours to carry without guilt or fear. Because life is not about enduring more, it's about living better, and you deserve to live better. Are you ready to begin? We're with you, always. We'll see you in the next Stoic session. And if this message touched you, I invite you to write your personal declaration in the comments. Even if I get lost, I will never stop seeking myself. Let that be your anchor and your reminder that you are closer to yourself than you imagine. Your voice matters here. Every reflection strengthens and elevates our community, shaping the identity of what it means to live stoically. The most supported comment will be pinned as a banner for this Stoic community. A community that doesn't run from pain, but walks through it with courage, wisdom, and honor. Joining this Stoic community is breaking the chains that limit you and building an inner fortress no one can destroy. Follow us so you never miss another Stoic reflection. Remember, every decision shapes your character. In the pinned comment, you'll find two paths, and each exists for a reason. Some decisions may seem small, but they change everything. If something inside you shifted after reading this, don't let it pass. Subscribing is not just a click, it's a decision to no longer live asleep, to walk with awareness, courage, and purpose. And if you choose to support this space as a member, you're not giving, you're planting. Thanks to you, this flame stays alive. Your presence makes it possible for us to keep sharing wisdom in a noisy world. Building a community of awake, grounded, and free souls. See you in our next gathering at Stoicism for Winners, where we'll continue to explore the riches of Stoic wisdom applied to modern life. Until we meet again, remember, you are the sole owner of your perception, the creator of your peace, and the warrior in your own battle. This is the legacy of Stoicism, the art of being unbreakable.